Hi, it's Jordan1, and today I'll be showing you how to make this cute little Valentine's Day craft, or you can just make it to show your love for someone. It's actually made out of plastic canvas and yarn, and these were popular, I would say, back in the 80s. My aunt actually taught me how to make them, and she actually used to use just little googly eyes and make like a monstery face. And they have different names. I've heard them called Kissies or Squeezies. I think we used to call them a big mouth back when I was a kid. So I came up with this heart pattern for Valentine's Day. And then you can make a little sign here that says, "Squeeze me and I'll give you a kiss." Or if you had a face, you could say, "Squeeze my cheeks and I'll give you a kiss." And then when you squeeze the sides, the little mouth part opens up, and then you would put a little Hershey kiss inside. So I think they're a really neat idea for Valentine's Day. You can even make these to send in with your child for a classroom party to give out instead of just the paper Valentines. So what you're going to need to make this is your plastic canvas, which you can find at your local craft store. It comes in clear or several different colors, so I just have the clear. And you're going to want to cut 3 squares that measure 10 by 10. So you just want to count 10 squares down and 10 squares over, and then cut the canvas. And then you're going to need a needle of some kind. These are actually plastic canvas needles. You can see that they're pretty blunt. They're not sharp on the end, and they have a bigger opening to fit the yarn in. And I can show you the package. I just got these at my local craft store. And then you're going to need red and white yarn, and then also a Hershey kiss to put inside. So I've now cut my 3 plastic squares that measure 10 by 10, and I'm going to start with the easiest part first, which is going to be 2 solid white squares. So let me just take my first one here, and I've cut a piece of white yarn, and so I'm just going to thread my needle here. Switch hands. And you can use a needle threader for this if you're having a hard time to get it through, but if you get a needle with a large enough opening in the back, you should be alright. So I'm just going to pull this through just a little ways because I don't want it to come off of the needle. And we're going to be working on the top right square here. We're always going to start on the right. And I'll be showing a graph up in the left-hand corner to help you follow along with what I'm doing. And so you're going in from the back on the top right corner, and you want to pull this most of the way through. You just want to leave a little bit of a tail, maybe about that length here, maybe about an inch or so, maybe a little less. And I'm just going to use my finger to stick that in the back so it doesn't come through. And then I'm going to go diagonally down and to the left, and that's where I'm going to take my needle and come down through from the front to the back. So that's my first stitch, and then I'm going to go over to the second square on the top. I'm going to come up through. Just make sure you're not going through this tail that's on the back here. And then again, I'm always going diagonally down and to the left. So I'm going down through. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm keeping this in the center here, this is just going to naturally get these pieces of yarn wrapped around it, so you won't have to worry about it coming loose. And now I'm going to the third square over on the top row, coming up through, and then going diagonally down and to the left, and pulling. So you're just going to keep repeating that pattern, going up through the next one on the top, and then diagonally down and to the left. I'll just do that for the rest of this row here. Gonna work a little bit faster now. So it's actually quite easy to do. just going to go all the way to the end here. And then I have one more. So this is the second to last one at the top, and then diagonally down and to the left. So that's the very end one. So in this very top left corner, you're not going to have any thread going through there or any yarn, but when we wrap the outside, it'll take care of that corner. So now, as you're moving down to the next row, you're going to go to the second box over on the left here, and there will already be a piece of yarn through it from the top row. You're just going to come up through there, and then again go diagonally down and to the left. And then you're just going to work your way backwards using that pattern. So I'm going to the next row over, coming up through, and then going diagonally down and to the left. So you'll just follow that pattern the whole way across. And basically that's all there is to it. You're going to fill up the entire square using all white in this same pattern. So I'm just going to fast forward through this part. I've now completed my first square, and I have this little piece of yarn left. So what I'm going to do is flip over to the back, and I'm just going to take my needle and I'm going to slide it through a couple of the pieces of yarn, and then I'm going to just pull this through just to secure that in place. I can take my needle out, and I'm just going to trim this little piece off the back. And then you're going to repeat that one more time. So take your second square here and do the same thing again. So you can pause the video while you do that. So I now have my second square done, and you can see that they have the 4 edges that are raw with nothing on them. So one I'm going to leave like that, but the other one I want to finish off 2 of the edges. So I need to get another piece of yarn. And so I'm just going to take it, and I'll start here on the top right. Just going to put my needle up through, pull the yarn up, and again I'm just going to hold this on the back here just a little bit so it doesn't come all the way through, and then I'm just going to go back up through that same hole. And I'm going to do that a couple of times just because it's the corner here. So let me just go from underneath and come back up through. And then I'm just going to work my way down to the bottom here, always coming up through from the back and pulling it tight. So again, this part's pretty simple. So I'm just going all the way down here. I'm just going to put 1 stitch in each one. If you feel like your plastic isn't being covered enough, you can always put 2 stitches in the same hole, but I'm just doing 1. Now down here at the bottom I'm going to do a couple since it's the corner, so I did that 1. I'm going to go up through and do another one and try and maneuver it so it's covering that corner. And then I'm actually going to go up through one more time, and this time have it cover towards the bottom. So now I'm just going to go across the bottom here. Again, I'm just going to do 1, but you can do more. And then when I get to the end here, again, I'm going to do just a couple. And then once again, I'm going to take this and go through a couple pieces of yarn on the back and pull this all the way through. And then I can cut that. Now for my last square, this is where I'm going to put the heart pattern on. So I am going to again start on the top right, and it's going to be with the white yarn. And so I'm just going to go up through the back on the top corner on the right. And I'm going to hold this little end section and come down. So it's going to be white across the entire top. So you should be pretty familiar with this pattern by now. So I'm going to move a little quicker here. This one's to get caught up on the corner. So we're going all the way to the end here. And then we want to do the one below it. So I'm going to that second square over in the second row and coming up through and then diagonally down into the left. But now this next section here on the second row is going to be red. So I'm going to have 3 reds. So the red band is going to go here, here, and here. So this is the next one here I want to come up through. So I'm actually skipping the 3 and coming up through the 4th. And then diagonally down. And then I'm just going to follow that the rest of the way over here on this row. And now on this next row below here, we're just going to do 4 whites going over to the left. So that's the first one. And that's the 4th one. And then I'm going to jump to the row below. And again, I'm going to do 4. And then on the row below, we only have 2 of the white to do. And then on this next row, I'm going to jump all the way back to the right here because I only have just 1 to do, the very first one. And then going below here is another single. And then the one below that is just 1. And then finally at the bottom, I have 2. So the one on the end and then the next one over. And then that will complete the white here. So I'm just going to flip it over, and again I'll just stick it through. I only have 1 row here. Just stick it up through. and pull that up. And so now the rest of the empty ones are going to be all red, so that should be pretty easy to follow. So with my red here, I'm going to start on the second row here down, and I'm going to work from the left over to the right. So I'm going to the third hole over in the second row, and that's where I'm going to come up through with my red. And then I'm just going to leave a little back section here, and I'll come down through. And again, I'm just working my way over to the right. So I'm having 3 stitches on this row. So I'm just going to fast forward here. I'm just going to keep working my way over, back and forth, and I'm filling in all of the empty ones here. I've now finished the rest of the heart here, and so I'm just going to again go through some of the red on the back here and then pull my yarn through to secure it in place. You can see I cut a very long piece of red. And so now what I want to do is I want to go around these 2 edges here that go on the pointy part of the heart. I'm going to use white, and I'm just going to finish off those edges. So I'm just going to start at the top right here, and I'm going to go through this corner a couple times again. Leave a little bit of an edge there. Come up through. And you can move the yarn a little bit to position it around the edges. You don't want any sharp edges sticking through. And then I'll just work my way down here, just doing 1 through each of the squares. I'm going to try not to go up through any of the red yarn. And then down here on the corner, again, I'm going to go through a couple times. At least 2, maybe a 3rd time. And then I'll just work my way up this other side. And if you feel like your yarn is getting kind of twisted, what you can do is just hold it up and it'll naturally untwist itself. So we're almost getting there. And now we're at the other corner here. So I'm just going to go through that a couple times. And then again, I'm just going to slide this through. The back starts to look kind of messy, but that's okay. Nobody's going to see. That's going to be on the inside. And so now we have our 3 pieces. You should have your heart with the 2 finished edges, and then the other 2 are just raw. And then you have your other piece that has the 2 finished edges, and then finally you have your third piece that doesn't have any finished edges. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get the 2 white pieces and put their insides facing one another. And then where the raw edges are here, I'm going to just stitch this together. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going from the total outside and through, because I don't want the end to be sticking out, I'm going to only go through the one here in the front, just for now. Just going to stick it through here, just because I want the tail end of this to be on the inside. So I'm going to leave a little bit in there. And now I'm going to just line these up, wrap this over the top here, and go through again. Now I'm going to go through both of them. And since this is the corner, I just want to make sure that no sharp ends are sticking out. So I'm going to go through this several times, probably at least 3. And get it along the bottom here too. And now I'm just going to work my way up. Let me get this out of the way. Just work my way up here, just going through both sections every time. And you want to make sure that they're nice and tight together. And again, you can put more than one stitch inside of each of the squares if you feel like that's necessary, if you feel like your yarn's not covering. So now here at the corner, again, I'm going to put 3. And then I'm just going to work my way up all the way to the top. So it's definitely coming together here. I feel like my yarn's getting pretty twisted, so just and now here I'm at the other corner. So again, I'm putting through 2 or 3 stitches. I'm going around to the top here just a little bit. And then I need to tie this off, so I'm just going to go around and go on the inside and slide it through. I'm going to get this pulled all the way through, and then I can snip it off. So we're halfway done here with the sewing together, and so now you have these 2 pieces, and now what we need to do is finish it off here with the heart section. So what you're actually going to do is sort of bend this up. It's a little bit of an awkward thing. It's the hardest part, I think, to deal with. You want to bend this up and get this heart in there, and that's going to have to bend a little bit too. And then you can see that these 2 raw edges are now lined up with one another. So now I'm just going to get these stitched here. So I'll start at the bottom, and then once again I'm only going to go through that front one just so I can get the end of my yarn to be hidden inside. So let me just hide that. And now I'm going to go through both sections. Just be careful when you're pulling this that you don't pull it too hard that your end of the yarn comes out. Let me just go through here again. And you can manipulate the yarn so that it's covering any sharp parts. And now I'm just going to work my way up, stitching these together. And then once again, for this corner, I'm going to do 3 stitches. And then we have this one more edge to finish up here. And now we're at the end here. So I'm just going to put in about 3 stitches. And I'm going to put my yarn over to the side here to make sure it's all covered. And so now I still have to hide this, so I'm just going to loop over and then go down through some of these on the inside. And I still have to snip this. And then I am finished. So now you can just bend it out like it needs to be, and you can add your Hershey Kiss inside. I think it works best when the big wide part of the Hershey Kiss is along the back here. And you're finished. So then you can make a little tag if you want to, the way that I did here on this one. I just went in Microsoft Word and opened a document and then just printed this out. And then I cut it, and I actually used a little heart-shaped hole punch. If you don't have that available, you can use any hole punch that you have. So I hope that everyone enjoyed making their little heart Valentine Kissies. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on my latest tutorial. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching!